Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome to this week's episode of Steelers Touch Down Under. I'm Matty Peverill, joined as always by my co-host. He's back, Marky Davison. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad. I'm still feeling a little bit run down, but I couldn't miss this show. I couldn't miss the Big Ben show. I'm doing okay. I might cut myself off from the screen if I go into a little bit of a coughing fit, and I don't want the audio guys to hear that. Not feeling the best. Getting better every single day, but I'm here to talk some Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm pretty excited to talk about Big Ben, and just what happened last week was amazing. You know, wouldn't you agree? Like right out of the ranks, wasn't it an amazing game to watch?
Yeah, 100%. It's in some ways it feels like it was yesterday, in other ways it feels like it was like a few weeks ago. It's hard to think that we're really seeing the last of Big Ben. It's kind of also interesting that wasn't like the last game and then he walks off into the sunset completely.
Yeah, I know, right?
It's weird with this week. I think it's kind of nice though. I think it would have been very final last week, unless it was, of course, that they made the playoffs. And I just want to say welcome to George Teston. He's the first one commenting in the live chat. We know there's other people watching as well right now. And Steeler Chick 46 is in there as well. But yeah, I think you look at Big Ben. You look at everything he's done for the Steelers. You look at 18 seasons. You look at 2 Super Bowls. You look at the fourth quarter comebacks. All the game-winning drives, and it's just an incredible career. Really, it really is. And I talked about it with Rich last week, but he's had 5 fourth quarter comebacks and 6 game-winning drives this season alone. 40 for his career in terms of fourth quarter comebacks and 52 for game-winning drives. They're incredible numbers, and the 92 wins equal with Brett Favre, at Heinz Field. The idea of 18 winning seasons as well, no losing seasons, 17 of which he played, some part in versus 2019 when he didn't. You think Mike Tomlin, the 15 seasons, and now is above 500, and Tomlin does a terrific job. And, it's not on Ben and it's not on Tomlin that both of them get to share that statistic. The statistic is there because of them both together. And I truly believe, you and I weren't alive when Big Ben retired, Terry Bradshaw retired. That came after us. But you got to think, Bradshaw was what with the Steelers? I think it was 14 seasons. It was the 4 Super Bowls. But Big Ben, like 18 years is a long time to play for one team. It's a long time.
So long.
No, I don't think anyone's done it, and it's even some of the great quarterbacks like your Dan Marinos and, dare I say it, Tom Brady's and Brett Favre's all played for different teams in their career. And I think just to go out 18 seasons a Pittsburgh legend it's incredible. I think this team is one that's going through a refresh period. Ben helped keep them winning. I mean, this is the thing. You think about last year, and you think about the 11-0, you think about, people always like to throw that statistic, the Steelers haven't won a playoff game or been past the AFC Championship, game in something like 6 or 7 seasons. But there are a bunch of rookies that are going to have fantastic careers with the Steelers or another team if they don't stay around, whatever. When you think about, Claypool will have a good career, but you think about your Pat Freiermuths, your Najee Harris's, your Devin Bush's. I think Devin Bush can come back, even TJ Watt. But the rookies this year and last year have had 2 seasons or 1 season learning from Big Ben about what it takes to be great. And the mark that is going to leave on this Steelers organization, that's a hard one for us to be able to sum into words. The only people that know what that truly means are the guys in that locker room and the guys in the franchise office. But I think Steelers fans are so thankful, and I think Steelers fans showed it in the best way possible as well.
Yeah, it was just amazing to see. I know, like I was watching at home in Australia. It didn't hit me. The moment, Matty. It didn't hit me till after, when I had my teary moment, when I saw Big Ben do the helmet touch around all the offensive line and all the offensive players, like headbutt every single player. I went, oh no! Like that, just kind of like. I was kind of done. I was like, all right, so it really is the last time, isn't it? It's one of the last times I think we've seen Ben. And you've hit the nail on the head. 18 years, mate. And like you start to reflect in some of your own personal stuff, like what's been happening in our lives for the last 18 years. Where have we come and where are we going? And that's where I kind of like get emotional with like, I'm 32. What the F am I doing? You know, like I've been watching Ben all this time. Surely Ben can be, he reminds me of being a kid and watching the Steelers. Now he's done. Does that mean I have to grow up? Does that mean I have to go out there? You know, like things change. Like, you know, you're getting married, people having families, people getting new jobs. That kind of like pass the torch is just amazing.
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there. And I just want to address one question. There's in the live chat from Mark, and he sort of said, Mark would say, why not give Ben the best defensive line this year instead of all the rookies? People can go into all sorts of things, but you've got to remember this was the hardest year. You know, in fact, and it shows how tough Big Ben is. That salary cap copped a $20 million plus hit. You know, and the Steelers had a lot of contracts they had to shed, and they had a retirement into Castro. Well, what will probably be a retirement into Castro that they didn't factor in, or they didn't know, is probably a better way to say it. But I think you're right. Going back to it, Mark, you think about like even Jeff and Dave on this, you know, from our BTSing network. You know, they talk about watching Big Ben when they were in college. They're now fathers of teenagers. Like Jeffrey Bendick talks the same thing, being a new father, you know, and being just out of college. You and I talk about being 14 years old. I was in year 7 when Big Ben started, right? I'm now a decade out of university, right? Like, you know, the Steelers haven't lost at home like on a Monday night football game since 1991, like October. Do you know how old I was? I was 5.5 months old when they lost that game. Right? Like my whole life, almost my whole life, they've never lost a Monday night football game. I mean, the history of success and the passion and the grinding out, and it's not pretty. And I like that Big Ben highlighted that, you know, in the press conference this week. People, you know, he was asked about 123 yards, and he was just like, well, look, it's not been pretty my whole career, but the victories is what counts. And it's just this incredible legacy of hard working and grinding. And, you know, you and I aren't from Pittsburgh. I think we affiliate with a lot of stuff that, you know, the Yinzers are about. But to me, it's this grittiness, right? And I mean, he finishes his career at the moment. We don't know what's obviously going to happen in this game, but with 164 wins, 81 losses, and 1 draw out of 248 games, if he gets that to 165, he gets pretty close to a 65% winning percentage. I mean, that's incredible, really.
Yeah, and I wouldn't have cared if he finished his career with 5 interceptions. That game versus the Browns, we had to win that game. That was the clear point. Najee went off. Our defense played amazing. It was all for Big Ben. It didn't matter how he played. That's what I was trying to get at, and it is hard. I think it is hard to see it's going to be exciting next year, but it's definitely hard to see what will happen because we have been a fan of this guy for so long, and he's been consistent in our lives. Turn the TV on, Big Ben's on, our Steelers are on. Now, look, I've always going to be trying to cheer the team, not the person. So if Big Ben came back and started playing for the Chargers, I wouldn't cheer for the Chargers. I'd say good luck, mate. Go at it. But I cheer for the team. So yeah, it was quite an emotional day. Like just for every single fan to imagine being Big Ben and he's just been going to work for 18 years and now he's got to go, all right, got to go home now. You know, it's amazing.
But I think, but it's also, we have to remember that these are people, right? These players are people, and you saw that when he walked off with the family. Like I've talked about on this show a couple of times, another podcast show from the NFL Network that has had Luke Kuechly on. And on one of them, they said to Luke Kuechly, staying across football, we see you traveling a lot on social media. What are you doing? And he was like, yeah, I've been doing a bit of travel, but I've been doing a lot of hunting throughout, you know, the US and different states. And he said, but, you know, there's things, he said, you know, everyone is always, you know, ask, am I going to go back to coaching? Am I going to go back to, you know, being, you know, on broadcasts or media or what have you? And he sort of talks about the fact there are things that he hasn't been able to do since he was 15, 16 because he's tied up with, even in the off season with all the, the team obligations, he's tied up with what's going on in terms of rehabbing his body and all the rest of it. And so you've got, like, Big Ben's got kids, I think they're 9, 5, and 3, I think is the right way to say it. Like, he's got to go spend some time doing that. He talks about being a better husband. These wives of these NFL players or partners of these NFL players, put up with a hell of a lot. And so, I think, I mean, I'd love to go into retirement as well with like $250 million. I think that'd be fantastic. But, he now gets to go and do all that. And, there's obviously the negative side to some of the things that happened early in Big Ben's career, whether a couple of those things or one of those things were, money grabs or fake or what have you, whether they're true, regardless, you've got to be able to separate the player from what goes on. And, my thing that I've been saying all week to people is, do you listen to music from Michael Jackson? And a lot of people go, oh yeah. I'm like, well, he's a pedophile. So, like, at the end of the day, you've got to separate the two things. And at the end of the day, Big Ben goes out. I think for Steelers fans, I think people can separate it. And you've got to remember what was on the field. And I just think the other thing that stood out to me in this game as well was the way that everyone did rally. I think at times this season we've questioned the quality, we've questioned the culture, we've questioned the commitment, we've questioned the passion. I think a lot of the players stood up and showed what they're capable of, if they can really come together. So, yeah, but sorry, I know you had something to say.
I just want to say one thing about that Ben stuff. And look, the best way I can see it is I've been watching this guy all my life. I don't really have any take on it. I think a lot of people shouldn't have any take on it because, one, it's never really been proven. But for me being in Australia, Matty, if you being in Australia, we're so far away from if it did happen or any player over there, even with the Antonio Brown stuff going on right now, I got to kind of reserve myself and not have that much of a take and not get too offended because, we used to get offended by Juju's antics. But look, I got to really
get litty, mate.
Yeah, let's get lit. Like, let's pull myself back and say, I don't know. I wasn't there back in the day. And it seems like that cloud has hung over Big Ben's head and he's pushed through it. But it's not going to affect my judgment of the guy because I don't know even if it's true or not. You know what I'm saying? And it just doesn't make it. It's just nonsensical arguments, and it's the trolls on Twitter that go after him for that one thing, right? But he's been like so helpful throughout the Pittsburgh community and the Pittsburgh city itself, and for all kinds of players. It just doesn't make any sense. And like you said, like the players all fought for him. They did a great job. I was a little bit angry, Matty, right? I was happy they were playing so well, but I was angry that they were playing so well. Why would you think that?
Because you were like, where was this all year?
Where was it all year? Yeah. Exactly. I was like, man, they're playing some really good football. 9 sacks getting after it. I was like so happy. And you kind of think, hang on a minute. Where was this intensity the whole year? Wasn't there. So, I don't know. I hope they can come out this week and play some better football. It's all for Ben at this point. But like I said, like it was frustrating to watch how well they were playing. Like how good of a game that was to see.
But then they were and they weren't though. Right? Like I want to get into we don't do parts in this show anymore, but I want to get into some Kendrick Green stuff later on in the show. But Najee had the 37-yard run, and again, I want to talk about that later on because there's a couple more things I want to cover first. But the team played well in a lot of areas, but on offense, like Big Ben had 123 yards, completed 24 or 46 passes. Right? It wasn't, and there were a lot of drops on the day. There were people, not, in the position they needed to be in, what have you. The game wasn't perfect, right? Like they did enough to win the game, but the game wasn't perfect. Like if you go take the Big Ben glasses off, maybe you need to watch this game 5 times to get there. And you actually watch this game, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't good. Now, a couple more gritty performances, they might have, won a few more games. They'd be in playoff contention. And it's different when you get there, right? It's different when you get to the playoffs. It's a new competition. But like I saw one this week that basically said if you reverse the who won out of the games that were 1 under 1 score, they showed a ladder of the AFC and the NFC. The Steelers were 3-12, right? Now, I disagree with that in that you win a game. It doesn't matter by how many points. If you win, you get a win, right? You know, it's different. You know, you could replay one game 1,000 times and have all these different outcomes, but someone would win more games, someone would win less. I just think though that people are walking away from this game like the Steelers, won a playoff game. Yes, that's the feeling we get because of Big Ben, but there are a bunch of things that have got to be fixed. Or we're going to be saying the same things that we've said this season, this time next year. Insert some different players and different coaches. So that's where I think it sits. But I think the other big one is the next legend of this team, the next franchise player. That's TJ Watt. I mean, what he did in that game, what he's potentially able to do this week. I mean, the guy in 5 seasons, Mike, 79 tackles for a loss, 147 quarterback hits, and 71 sacks. 5 years, right? And he's almost averaging like 15 sacks a season. That is like, it's incredible numbers. And yeah, like people panned bad for it early on in the season. If you don't think he can have a crack at the career sack record, you're kidding yourself. Like,
he's getting
like he's got to stay fit, and we've all got to remember that TJ's not really had a major injury at this point, and that's something that's very hard not to do. But if TJ played to the age of Kevin Green, or some of those other guys into their early mid-30s, he can get better. It's one of those things you've seen a lot of players get better with sacks as they've gotten older. To me, and I know that I will probably even get a bit of disagreement from some of our BTSC colleagues on this, but I wanted to see TJ sign to a multi-year deal. But obviously he's on a 4-year deal, but I wanted to see a 7-year deal. I wanted to see something, including this year, 6 years, 156 million or so. Very team friendly at the end of it. We've got him for 4. His number's only going to go up, right? Like in 4 years' time, we're not going to be probably seeing a reduction in what we can pay, TJ Watt. And I think the impact that he's got to just game wreck, like absolutely game wreck, Mark. Like I argue that apart from that Najee run at the end, the 37-yard run and then the 5-yard run, and KT Smith had a fantastic article on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. Go check it out. I think it went live a couple of days ago. But, apart from those 2 plays, TJ destroying Baker Mayfield with those past, breakups and defenses and those sacks and yelling at him. Like, I love it. And you saw that post from TJ this week as well. Like, I've put in so much effort. It's consumed me to get this sack record. The doubter in me, that negative Pittsburgh Steelers fan this week said, I bet he doesn't get a sack this week, just to,
Well,
but I can't see him not. I just think he's just going to come out of this game and it'll be like a bull at a rodeo, and be bucking people off.
I saw a post out there somewhere in the internet universe, and it was saying that the Ravens just might run it so he doesn't have a chance to. Like the Ravens might run it every single time, and I could see them doing that. They can win. They can still go to the playoffs, but they need
more things to go right than Pittsburgh do, though.
They need 3 teams to lose. I don't know what teams are, but imagine if they ran the ball every time and TJ didn't get a chance to sack, or every time he was on the field they just ran it. You know what I'm saying? Like they would do something like that. I actually did see Did you ever see the Michael Strahan last sack? I looked it up.
Where Brett Favre basically fell over.
I wish I had money on that. What an easy win! Like, come on, he rolls out. There's no protection, and he rolls right into the sack to get the lead. Like that's not cricket, mate, is it?
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like did he want to get smacked by Strahan as well? Like, I mean, I'd love to see TJ though go out and get like 3 or 4 sacks and just make this an impossible one to break.
Get like 25 or something over there.
Yeah, 100%. I think it'll be hard though. I think he'll just get there. I think the Steelers, everyone wants him to get. I'd love, like Dave Schofield said, them to get 8 sacks and get to 60. But the big one that for me that's frustrating, like you're going to see Cooper Kupp potentially take over Calvin Johnson for most yards and take over for most receptions from Michael Thomas in season. Their numbers I do think are somewhat inflated by the 17 games. But TJ Watt, like he has played, 12 and a half games this season it works out to be, or even less potentially with the different time he's missed. But you're almost at, if you get to 24, like at 21 sacks, he's averaging almost 1.5 to 2 sacks a game. That's incredible.
The only thing is though, still having the extra game, I think you have an extra game to get healthy. So I still think, yes, he has less games.
What do you mean?
Well, he still has the whole season. Say, for instance, if you play 17 games and you get hurt, then, there's not less time to prepare and come back. But if you get hurt in the 18 games, and you still have more time to come back and prepare. So,
well, yeah, I mean, but the other thing too is, right, he's hit, the 71 sacks in his career, right? He played 15 games in his rookie year. Then he played all 16 the next 2 years. Obviously regular season and playoff stats don't count to your career stats. And then in 2020, he missed, the final game of the season. So yeah, he's played in 14 games and really he's played in like 12 of them for 21 and a half sacks. I mean, I know what you're saying, but I just think the idea that you can, in a season, average almost 1.5 sacks a game, and the idea that you can average almost 1 sack a game for your career, is like, it's just incredible.
It's still nuts. Like I'm telling you, I'm going to be so mad this year if he doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sorry.
You know what? If he doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year, as far as
we riot.
We don't talk about it on this show anymore. Like, do not talk about Defensive Player of the Year ever again. You and I can do this show for 20. You and I can do this show for 18 seasons like Big Ben. I'm never talking about it ever.
He has to win it, mate. There's no doubt about it. If he doesn't win it this year, there is something going on. I'm not saying it's fixed, but he is the best player on the defense this year. Period. Like, out of all the teams, I don't care about Michael. Is it Parsons, the rookie? First of all, he should win Defensive Player Rookie of the Year, not Defensive Player of the Year. Who's the other guy? Aaron Donald. He's already won it twice. And Trayvon Diggs has got the interceptions, but TJ has been the game wrecker, like you said. And the way that he passed the flex, he can almost steal those interceptions too. He better win this, mate. I'm going to be furious. Like, we have to get like some sort of award for our accomplishment. And because we're not in the playoffs, it always hurts us, doesn't it? Well, if we don't make a playoff push, it's going to hurt us.
Yeah, but I think it's also, he's just by far and away, like the impact that you have on games is just, I mean, you look at this, right? Bruce Smith, who has the 200 sacks all-time career, he had them in 279 games. Like, TJ's on a higher percentage. Now, yes, he could go like 5 games without a sack. He could have a season that's a down season, right? But I just think this is an incredible performance from a player that just is literally, out of this world, game wrecker. And we talk about the defense. Akhello Witherspoon, had another strong game. I thought really exciting from him in terms of what he can do. I think this team's got a lot of growth areas. If you're a quarterback, you're sitting there going, wow, I think there'll be a lot of time in the offseason for us to talk about different quarterbacks and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, big time.
But the reality is, Steelers fans, we may see a quarterback that gets 3 or 4 Super Bowls in their career again with the Steelers. That is quite likely. But what is less unlikely is to see a quarterback play 18 years for the Pittsburgh Steelers. That probably will never happen again in our lifetime. It's not the way the leag's set up. It's not the way the game's set up. It's not the way, I think. It's not the way. It's just, that will be legendary.
Well, it's not the way that life is set up. Not many people, let alone work 18 days, let alone 18 years. When you take it back to Big Ben and how everything works, happens for a reason, the guy must be tired. Like, people are saying, what do you think he does after this? Does he go into media? I think he sits down on the couch and just says, all right, what's on TV? Come on, man. He's done so much. It's crazy. Like, he's played so much and so well for us.
I think you'll see him in the next decade. I think at some point in the next decade. I think he's going to probably take 3 to 5 years off. I'm speculating here, obviously, but like I could see him come back to the franchise and do.
You never know.
Something.
He might just walk away like a lot of players do. Like
Maybe.
Once they're done with the game. What does Troy Polamalu do out there? He goes out and rates movies every like 3 or 4 months. You see him like talk about a movie. He doesn't really get involved in the NFL. Maybe that was just your job. And like, I know even from my previous job, it's not the same as the NFL, but I haven't been back to the same club. I don't really care for it. I was there for the reason to make money and get in, get out. And I have no care for it. I'm not saying he doesn't care for the Steelers, but I'm just saying sometimes they don't want to stick around as, more than they have to. And, but saying that, Ben's been playing this game 18 years, which is like, in Australia, he's legal to drink. Like, that's amazing. Like, it's just, I know we're swapping back from TJ to Ben, but it's crazy. And I was so happy as well for TJ to, like, that was almost a TJ game as well to go off and crazy. And I'm excited to see what direction this Steelers franchise can go. I know a lot of the haters out there think that we all suck and stink and we're going to be terrible for 20 years. I don't see that. I really don't. Not until we collapse like the Jaguars and we wish and pray for them this week or teams like that. I don't see that in our nature. Do you? Do you see that in our nature over the next 10 years, 5 years?
Well, so I think they're two different questions. I think when you think about the 5-year part, right, there's going to be veteran, quarterbacks that they might look at. They might look at a draft pick. They might look at a whole host of different things. And if they don't work, then over a 10-year period, we could be in a bit of a situation. But I think when you're talking about what's coming up in the next 5 years, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, this defense is too good. I mean, Minka right now is top 15 on the season for tackles. There's a couple of other strong safeties in there, but there's no other, free safety. And I know he's kind of not really playing a free safety role. But you think about, Cam Hayward, if you get to it back in that way, if you find, the right defensive tackle in the upcoming draft or the upcoming couple of drafts, replacements for Hayward, there's a couple of good guys coming out over the next few years as well. That if you can get Hayward to mentor them. Pat Freeman, I think, could be a Steeler for life if he wants to be as well. And that's a big thing to say at the end of his rookie year, but I just think he's a fantastic player. And I'm excited in some ways by what a new quarterback might mean, because I think Freeman is very differently. I think Freeman is one of those players. I think Claypool is one of those players. But you talked a little bit before about the changing of life, right, and the growing up, and I said that, Dave and Jeff, for example, had coached in college, and then their fathers that went for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they had this gap between Bradshaw and Ben. They have to mature to being able to deal with that gap, right? And you and I at the same time, we get to look forward over the next few years to hopefully the Steelers getting that next franchise guy and being able to talk about him. And we've got a platform that people didn't really have unless you're in the media when Big Ben started. So that's exciting. We will learn from this experience as well. But this is a team that's set up,
exactly right.
Yes, Brady's won a bunch of Super Bowls, but you look at what Nick Foles did with Philly, and he's still a decent quarterback, at the time. You need the right people around you. And that's what I have confidence in this team. There are so many people that are game wreckers in this team. There are people that are coming up and developing. There's a lot of youth. We could be in, it might take a couple of seasons, but if they can keep the core of this together and they can continue to add strategically through the draft, I don't see us, moving away from this winning record. And I looked at Mike Tomlin's 15 seasons, right? He has 6 seasons of a single-digit winning record, right? But he almost has, I think it's 5 of those 15 seasons, a 12-4, or he had the 13-3. So he's just as likely, basically, to have single-digit winning seasons as he used to have 12+ wins. That's some incredible numbers. Like, I don't know whether the Detroit Lions in the last 30 years have ever being double. Well, they have been double digit because remember the 10-6, but I don't think they've been 12 plus, right? And so you just got to sit there and go, wow, and you're always in with a shot at that point in time, and I think that's incredible. And there are some quarterbacks that I'm really keen to talk through as we get to the draft.
Well, let's put it this way. I know we have to go back into almost the halftime sling and slang break, but let's put it this way, Matty. In the last 18 years, the Steelers have had a shot at the playoffs pretty much all the time, right? Now, I'm going to go from a fan perspective. Yeah. So we've always thought we might be able to go to the playoffs. Okay. And how exciting is that to have a chance in the dance? Oh, some would say, yes, we can't do anything in the playoffs. I don't care about that. I care about if we get there. If we get there, we have a chance in the dance. Now, that is so amazing over 18 years. Now, there are many teams out there that can't feel that feeling. Like you said, the Lions, the Jags, the Jets, they turn the TV on and they're done in September. And they'll say, "Oh, we'll get back in April for the draft." I can't imagine being that miserable. I feel pretty miserable now with my cold, but we have a chance every single year to support our team to go to the playoffs. Other teams don't have that, do they?
Well, so and as a Steelers fan, you have to be grateful. You get to watch more Steelers games over. Well, if you look at it back right now, you've got to watch more Steelers game over the last decade, 20 years, 30 years. But other teams have watched for most of the part, unless you're a Patriots fan, maybe, that other people have watched. So, I just think this is incredible. But Mark, you're right. This is the usual time for slinging the slang, and this is the last time we can really say this with the usual catchphrase with Big Ben. So I'm about to do it. Mark, you don't know this, but I've been preparing a transition, a new terminology with our slang. So I'm going to talk to you about that after this week's show, and then it might debut next week. But that's pretty cool. I'm excited for that, a passing of the torch, if you like. But yeah, as always, Mark, just as Big Ben likes to sling the rock, he'll sling the rock for the last few, however many times this week against the Baltimore Ravens. We like to sling the slang. It's where we give a taste of all things Aussie for the listeners. Do you have anything for the listeners this week?
I don't. I might use one of my old ones because I do feel a bit like I've been sick the whole week. I haven't really been thinking about slinging the slang, to be honest. That's been on me last, mind. But I'll do this. We have the Pittsburgh Steelers have a chance in the dance for the playoffs. They got to go and beat the Ravens, and the Jags have to beat the Colts. Now, before anyone says, "Oh, we suck, we're terrible, we can't do that," whatever, just sit back and relax and just say, she'll be right. Because this whole season, and I hopefully we can talk about it when I have a bit more steam and next week, if we are done. This whole season of the Steelers has been a roller coaster ride. But do you really think if you were against the team that much right now, are you happy that we are in this position and we sucked? We were terrible, and here we are for a chance for the playoffs. Your expectations should be through the roof to the moon, really. If you thought that we were that bad after the few weeks and fire Tomlin and fire this guy and sit that guy and whatever, you should be happy that where we are with a chance to go 9-6-1 because you thought the roster was this bad. So, I'll cheer them any day of the week. So for me, it should be right, mate. Like, we're in a good position right now that no one's really expecting us to go to the playoffs. And if we do, let's see what happens. And if we don't, that was a crazy season, wasn't it? That was a crazy season. We won 8 games, and they keep calling Tomlin mediocre. But we're not losing. We're not going to tank down the draft. I just find these things very comical after the season, and we want to try and do our best. At the same time, the people who do hate on the Steelers a lot, and there's some of you out there, you can't have it both ways. You can't be hating and then once we turn it around, start getting momentum for the playoffs, you can't celebrate that too. I just get sick of that because I go all in and say, yes, we can make the playoffs. And then when we don't, I look like an idiot. But the Tomlin haters, the Ben haters, they win both ways. They win if we struggle, and they also win if we do win. So I just find that you got to choose one side of the coin. And I chose this year for a chance, and I reckon she'll be right, mate. Honestly, we can beat the Ravens and Jags. Jags have won 6 times at home, and they want to win. Like they've already locked up the number 1 draft. I'm pretty sure they can't change.
No, they can be level, but then I think when you split it out, I think that they win pretty much regardless now. So
they got to build on that, mate. They got to build on that last game. And what and how you're telling me that those Jags players don't want to end the Colts' playoff chances? Come on, man. They definitely do.
But I heard an interesting stat, right? It was on Good Morning Football. Carson Wentz has no interceptions away from home this season. And if he does that at the Jags, he will be the only quarterback in NFL history, apparently, that's never thrown an interception during a season at an away venue.
Wow.
So he doesn't really have the history on his side. So I'm leaning, who knows, maybe he throws 5 picks and then completely levels out, his season there. I had my slang for this week. It feeds off what you were saying, Mark, and that's Buckley's chance. So we say that when it's like very slim chance, like the 2% of, that the Jags would be able to beat the Colts and that we make the playoffs, we'd call that Buckley's. The same thing as another quarterback having Buckley's chance of playing 18 seasons straight for the Pittsburgh Steelers again. And that comes from basically a guy called William Buckley, who was very similar to basically like an Australian Robinson Crusoe. He basically escaped a convict ship in Melbourne in 1803. And then basically 3 decades later, people found this guy who was like tattooed. He's 2 meters tall, or I think that's like 6'6", 6'7". He had a long beard and he had half Indigenous children, and he could speak, the local language. And then he managed to pick up English in a few days, and they kind of realized that it was this Buckley guy that had escaped. So they gave him a pardon, and then he basically tried to build cooperation between the Australian settlers and the Indigenous community, and they ended up being a bit of a massacre. And so people sort of said he had Buckley's chance of ever making peace. And then apparently spent the latter part of his life as like a loner down in Tasmania. And then people lobbied to get him like a government pension. And then that's sort of how the name was sort of called Buckley's, if you don't have a lot. So it was just sort of an interesting one. But, we say it. I say, you got Buckley's chance all the time with different things. And, I think for a lot of people, it's Buckley's chance that the Steelers playing in the playoffs. It's Buckley's chance that, guy like even Kendrick Green, the center job next year, for example. But I think it's just going to be a really interesting week.
Let's jump into that, mate.
Whether the Steelers make it or they don't make it.
I know you wanted to jump into the green stuff too, but just first with the green stuff. Yeah. Well, well, I'll do my take now, then we'll change it up.
No. Let's tackle Kendrick Green. I think you should start off because I'm ready to tee off on this.
Well, okay. For my view on this green stuff, I overheard what Dave said or someone said on the preview the other day with the Steelers. Right? We got to stop it. We do it. Look. I'm not the X's and O's guy, but we got to stop canning people. They play bad for a few games, and we say, "Oh, get rid of him. He stinks. Let's get someone else." If you keep doing that, you'll have no team left. You'll have no one to develop and to get behind the players. Yes, the run game played better without him, and it looked better, but that could have been a mentality thing, could have been a scheme thing. I don't agree to get rid of him. I agree that, always bring in depth, always bring in players. Like, you don't just want 5 players on the offensive line who are good. You want 9. You want 9 who are pretty good. You want some standouts, but I just find it funny that we're so quick to judge and say he is terrible. Get rid of him. Let's go draft another center. And he has 2 bad games. And also, you look back to stuff with Big Ben when he had some bad games, and the whole season they were saying we got to bench Big Ben. No, Ben gave us the best chance to win every single week. So I think you've got to stick with your team and stick with who you've got until until maybe it's like 2-3 years in and they're exactly the same player, then you can kind of figure out who's who in the zoo. But it's just ridiculous, mate.
Well, exactly, you're right. Look at this. Troy Polamalu, Cameron Hayward. How are they first year? Go pull up the reports. Busts.
James Harrison was pretty bad. He got cut, I think, 4 times.
Now, there are a few things. I've heard it talked about schematics in our BTSC Slack channel. Jeffrey Benedict did an article about JC Hassenhauer. The first thing I'm going to start off with is the simplest argument. If JC Hassenhauer can have the development that he's had in an offseason, what the hell will Kendrick Green do as someone that's a better athlete? Right? Like, come on. Right? So that's argument number one, even if you disregard everything I'm about to say. Number two, you talk about drafting a center in this draft. There's one guy that doesn't even, I really think, have the hype that Creed Humphrey had. And Creed Humphrey went in the second round, and the guy's called Tyler Linderbaum. He's going to go from Iowa State. He's going to go in the first round. I don't think he's worth it. The Steelers have issues at cornerback. We have an issue at quarterback. Tackles, a good tackle in this draft requires, a first-round draft pick. At one of the top 2 or top 3 defensive linemen, and they're pretty much interior defensive linemen, they require a first-round draft pick. There's some great linebackers, so if you think Devin Bush is a waste of time, if Schobert doesn't agree to a new contract, there's 3 guys that are probably worthy of the first-round draft pick. There are other positions that this team needs to fix or get better solidification at than simply saying Kendrick Green's not the guy. Now, this is not coming from someone that, yes, I predicted that Kendrick Green was a fit for the Steelers. But when you go back to the schematics, Kendrick Green does a lot of the outside zone stuff from what I've been reading and from what I see. They ran a lot of inside zone this week, or maybe I've got it back around the front. I hope I got it the right way from what I was listening to KT Smith and Jeffrey Benedict talk about. That being the case, yes, they had a better game, but there are a lot of other Steelers offensive linemen. Right now, KD wasn't in the game, and Kevin Dotson. But there are other defensive linemen that are better at the inside zone. Therefore, when they all did it together and the limitations that Hassenhauer has in what he's capable of doing, yes, they played better. But equally, we've just sat here for probably 25 minutes and talked about the passion of trying to win that game. Who knows where that comes into play?
Exactly.
The other thing about Kendrick Green, in the last 24 hours, Big Ben's come out and said maybe they need to move him to guard because he is so aggressive. That doesn't mean he can't play center. It means he's aggressive. I've been saying for about 6 weeks now, I wonder if the issue with Kendrick Green is that he's so keen on snapping the ball, and the Steelers ask him to pick out the Mike linebacker as do some other teams. And yes, I've talked about the fact on last week's show as well. And I've talked in the live chats and other shows, but if you've missed it, around the fact that the Steelers are one of the few teams that like to pull their center. He's one of the few guys outside of Creed Humphrey that's capable of doing that. But more I want to say is what I've said for about 6 to 8 weeks now is, to me, it looks like Kendrick Green is focused on just snapping the ball and then smashing the guy in front of him because he's so aggressive. And he's rushing through all the things he needs to do. That, added to the fact that the Steelers ask a lot, means that as a rookie, he's probably going to make some mistakes at center.
Yeah, exactly.
And people sit there and say, oh, he didn't play center in college. No, because they had a guy that could play center that couldn't play guard. And that's the difference. I am the first person to sit here and say I think he needs to get bigger in the offseason. I think his technique needs to get better. But if you don't think that he can get better when you think about and you think that JC Hassenhauer is some revelation, then think again, because you've got a whole offseason for Kendrick Green to get better. You've got a better, if Munchak goes with the Broncos, I know he's close to his family, maybe they try and get him back. Chris Morgan, some people are fans, some are not. I think he's probably shown in the game that he can do more than what Clem was doing. Also, Clem, didn't apparently this week. Chris Morgan invited some of the other players into the offensive line meetings, and that created a difference as well. I thought if you go back and look at some of Najee's best runs or some of the runs where he got gains when the offense was going backwards, Pat Freiermuth was blocking like a madman, same as Gentry from what I was seeing, right? And
Whoa.
Sorry.
It was like even Radar was in there too.
Yeah,
he was blocking pretty well too. The whole offensive line was. They were doing great.
So all I'm saying is give some Kendrick Green some time, right? Like give the guy
He's a rookie, mate. He's a rookie. Like you just can't. That's what I'm saying. And I think it was Dave who did say it on the preview. You cannot just get rid of these players after 2 games and say they're awful. You just can't do that. You got to let them transition and get better as the season goes. And that's why we like watching the team too, because next year, if he does win the battle against whoever he's versing, bring in some depth, it's going to be so much fun to watch him again with Najee. And obviously that game too, Najee played his lights out that day. He ran 180 yards. I'm pretty optimistic with the future of this team and the future of this O-line for sure. Like you just can't cut one guy, and you wouldn't want to anyway.
Well,
unless he messes up.
But how many holes do you want to have to fill? Right, the Steelers still are potentially going to win like 9 games, and with average quarterback play, a lot of rookies in key positions, which hopefully they don't have to have next year. I don't understand why people think you can just plug and play people. And just if you can go and draft a first round guy, how many first round guys never go anywhere, right? And so you just got to. I just think you got to give the guy time. You can't sit there. It's actually incredibly contradictory to sit there and say that JC Hassenhauer should be the Steelers starting center next year. When last year people were saying he should be, including myself, cutting. I'm just saying, like, you've got to give Green the same allowance.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on this rookie class, Matty, getting 8 wins this year? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So I talked about
bad, right?
Well, but I talked about this in my war. Obviously, I talk about rookies as half of my war room every week. The other show that goes live on a Thursday lunchtime, Thursday afternoon. A few weeks ago, I talked about the snaps, and Kendrick Green had less snaps than Creed Humphrey, but he was still in like the top 20. It's in my other notebook, so I don't want to go looking for it when I'm on camera. But he had actually, it might be this notebook. But he had an incredible number. No, it's not. It's my other notebook. Damn it. But anyway, he had an incredible number of snaps when you compare them, to everyone else in the league, and he was in the top half for all centers. But Dan Moore Jr. is the top 8 for tackles, and he's the leading rookie tackle in terms of snaps. He has something like 20 more than Penei Sewell before the Browns game. He has 42 snaps more than Rashawn Slater, who's probably going to be an all-pro tackle for the Chargers. He's a pro bowler. The guy that's drafted in the 4th round, the 2 guys I mentioned,
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Are drafted in the first round. Like, you look at Trey Norwood, what he's done. I mean, I think he's in the top 76 for safeties in the league. And if you look at that puts him as arguably the best or playing the most snaps of the depth piece at the safety position, because it combines free safety and strong safety. Who would have thought that out of a 7th round draft?
That's what I'm saying. We don't normally do that. It doesn't normally happen with the Steelers. We normally, bleed them in a little bit from year to year to get, as I've always watched, you bleed in the rookies coming into the middle linebackers, or you don't put them in as in day one starters. Even Frymouth getting as a day one starter, and Najee the day one starter. He's had the most touches. So for this season, like it's been an up and down roller coaster, but I don't think it's been a failure. Like some people think it might have been a failure, or we're the worst team in the NFL. We've done pretty well with what we had. I think what we had with Najee getting, I think it's like 378 touches or something like that.
300. I thought it was 366 touches.
Yeah.
But without a fumble so far, and knock on wood that doesn't happen. But like,
we were so fast to do that. I'm sick of seeing that stat. There was someone else on Facebook who brought that up, and I was like, no, stop posting that, please stop posting about the knock on wood. We all know it. We all know that he doesn't do it. Just leave it alone.
I just think it's incredible. And I talked about him on War Room this week and compared what he's done to Le'Veon Bell. He's having a much better rookie year than Le'Veon Bell. And in fact, if you look at some of Le'Veon Bell's best career numbers, Najee's not that far away from it statistically.
No, I reckon the reason that it kind of feels like that for me, I've been wanting to see that 40-yard run, right? He doesn't. He's not that kind of guy. The offensive wasn't set that way. That's why it kind of feels like he's had like a good tough year. But he's got 4-point yards average or 1,000 something yards. I think he's done really well this year, and he's put us in a chance to win. And just the way that he runs football is amazing. He carries like 3 guys on his back, and he gets the first down.
How good was that stiff arm?
Oh, it's unbelievable, mate. It's unbelievable. Even the run near the end where they sold out the run to stop the run, and he runs away for a touchdown. And they all said, "Oh, he should have went down." No, you go for it. Just go for a touchdown. I think the plan was to go down to run the clock out, but at that time, you're not thinking. Just go and get the touchdown. Go up by 12 points.
Yeah. But look, I wanted to go into a couple of the active things this week as well. Activations. So Joe Hayden, Kendrick Green are in. I think I saw Dotson's in. Rashad Coward's been moved to the inactive list from the practice squad. So he's able to play as well. So he's back in there. They cut Isaiah Buggs, which I think Felicia brought up might have been Felicia in the live chat earlier on in the show. The team signed kicker Sam Sloman to the practice squad, released Tyler Vaughns. That's actually helpful for them because if you finish the season on the practice squad, that automatically they re-sign on that 2-year situation. So that might be more of keeping him with the Steelers under contract. I think Waitman's under the same situation. And then obviously, Deontay Johnson was also brought off that COVID list. James Washington was put on that list. So, he's obviously out there in that game, this week. So there are a few different moves there. But, the Steelers could be putting together a much stronger lineup in this week's game, all things considered. Really.
Yeah, I'm kind of glad DJ's back.
Me too. It was interesting. There was a bit of debate about that on the BTC Slack channel that I saw. But DJ is a distraction, for the defense of the opposing team.
Yeah, exactly. He helps out the whole offensive game plan. If he's out of this game, oh boy, it'd be very, very difficult, I think, to win. But good to see him back. Can we talk about? I just want to bring up as well. What about Boswell's season? What do you think of Boswell this year?
Well,
I know it's out of left field, but
no, it's good. I mean, I think we're going to have some time to review some things. I wanted to quickly talk about the Ravens, but I think when you look at Bos this year, I mean, extra points. He's only missed 1 on the season, so that's pretty awesome there. I think the field goal side of things. Most games he's at 100%. The only game that he has at 80% is when he kicked it 4 from 5. But there's other games. He's had something like, I think, 4 or 5 other games where he's made more than 3 field goals. To me, he should be the Pro Bowl kicker. I know Justin Tucker kicked that record, but I just think that the clutch nature he plays in Pittsburgh, which is so hard to kick at, he's incredibly important to this team.
Big time. I don't think he gets enough credit.
No, he doesn't. And so for my hope is that he just stays fit and we don't have to be talking about the Steelers not having an accurate kicker for the next 4 or 5 years. I just hope he just stays doing it because he's struggled with different injuries at times. So
I hope we can sign him up for like a big deal. So I don't know what.
Yeah, so I think he's got 1 year left. I talked a little bit about voidable contracts in War Room this week. So he's got 1 year left next year, but that can be restructured and he could sign a longer. I think he's someone that could be set up for an extension, or a restructure. Cool. So with voidable years that makes that, a lot more cap friendly. But if they can put that off 1 more year, that would be helpful for them.
He's just so automatic though. That 50-yard that went right down the sticks, mate. Yeah. Right down the sticks. I'm like,
you barely question if he's going to miss. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't, you just sit there and okay, Boz is lining up, good, done.
Yeah, I just want to bring him up because we never talk about him that much. I just thought he just needed.
I'd give it one back when we were doing the awards when the Steelers' performances warranted us to have the awards. I was pretty consistent with Boswell, and that's the only reason why we stopped doing them for the regulars. We just
it was hard.
It's a point in the season where we're just like we're not doing this anymore. They're not playing well enough. But when it comes to the Ravens this week, Mark, everyone's got them down and out. No Lamar, Tyler Huntley, obviously a quarterback. If the Ravens are going to take a win, or who do the Steelers need to stop? It's still an NFL game. We're all acting like this is just like the final game. It's like when you finish in school, like it's the last game, and it's all done and just tick the box. But who do they have to stop, or who do they have to be wary of?
They got to be wary, firstly, of the coach because he's a bit of a snake.
Weighing Harbs.
But firstly, I don't think this team wants to win. I made a prediction on this show or on the stuff that I do with my Steel Nation Australia, but I would have told you anyway, that they wouldn't win another game. I said the Ravens wouldn't win another game, and that was 4 weeks ago. They're on a 5-game losing streak. They've lost 5 games in a row. They've fallen off the cliff. Yes, there are injuries. Yes, there are things going on right now, but they just don't want to win a game. If that's the coaching where they go for the 2 points against us and they lose, they go for 2 points against, I think it was Green Bay, they lose. They are just out thinking themselves. They don't want to win. They're not playing good football at the moment. They have no QB. Tyler Huntley's playing okay, so I think you need to stop him. But I'm pretty happy to see the Ravens fall because I do know there are quite a few Ravens fans that come into our chat, or sometimes they do, and all they talk about is Lamar's stats and how good they are. And they have pretty much fallen worse than what we felt last year. You know what I'm saying? They felt pretty bad.
Yeah.
Like they were 8. I think they were 8 and what were they? 8-3 or something like that. With a chance to win the AFC North, favorites to win the AFC North, go to Super Bowl, and they lost their last 5, and now they're 8-8. They're exactly right. They're 8-8. They're a bad team. They're a really bad team. So
they have been a bit unlucky with some of the injuries.
I get that, but we've had injuries too.
But I've loved that the NFL, like if you at least go listen to any of the NFL media, 8-9 weeks of the season, they're all going on about the Browns and the Ravens and how this is going to be a real title fight toward the end of the season.
Yeah, and
they've completely fallen away.
Well, actually, the best team is the Bengals. Like they've played probably the hardest. They have the best.
But they've also, they have played the hardest. They've also been incredibly lucky with injuries themselves. Like every team's going to have to deal with injuries. But if you look at the injuries that they haven't had, I think that's a big player in how well they've done.
I know. I just find it funny that like everyone gave us a real bad time last year about 11-0 and we're the worst team. We're such a fake team. And yet the Ravens did the exact same thing, but maybe worse. Like we still won the division. We went to the playoffs, and yes, it went bad. The Ravens won't make the playoffs, and I said that 4 weeks ago. I've been yelling it from my house. Like they're a bad team at this time, and it's those Raven fans. Some of them are very smug. They're very smug. I know that I shouldn't get into the details of what a human is and who's good or who's bad, but they get after it. They think they've got the AFC North in their hands, and then they're just quiet. They're like the Fire Tomlin crowd, They're just very smug. So I'm happy.
So to close out the show, I've got a couple of quick questions, Mark. As always, it's money where your mouth is. It's very taken care of business focused. 2 themes we've had on the show this season, because this could be our last in-season show. I don't even the playoffs is really postseason anyway. All right, money where your mouth is. Next week, are we talking about the Steelers playing a playoff game, or are we talking about all the things involving the off season?
No, I reckon playoffs. I think we win the game versus the Ravens, and to cut it short, so I want you can have a voice too.
I've got a few more questions for you too. This is only question number 1.
I think the Jags can win this game because they have the rookie quarterback. He doesn't want to lose this game. You know what I'm saying? He doesn't want to lose his last game at home. And some of the fans, they're giving up. They're dressing as clowns because they think the organization is a clown franchise. Fair enough, but we want to see them cheer the team on.
Well, he's a decent quarterback still, and they have James Robinson there, who Urban Meyer is an idiot around. He's a great running back.
It's still a divisional game, so I'm glad it's a divisional game. That helps.
Yeah, me too.
The Colts have a lot of pressure to actually, a lot of saying, "Oh, they're going to walk in there and beat them by 14." No, that won't happen. Let's be honest; they still have to win the game. So, yeah, why not? The Ravens are bad, and Jags might be able to help us out. They could win by 3 points. You never know.
My head says we're talking about the off season. My heart says we're talking about the Colts game. And with that, I'm gonna go that we are talking about a playoff game. And so
why not? Why not? How amazing would it be next week?
That's when who knows? Like that's to me, if this team makes the playoffs,
2 games,
no one will want to play. No one will want to play Big Ben.
2 results, and we're number 7. Besides, if the Chargers and the Raiders tie, if they go out there and kneel every play,
they're not tying.
If they do, I'm doing this. I'm so out. Like I'm done. I'm getting rid of the NFL. I'm not watching it ever again. If I see that.
But also, you think about this team if they make the playoffs, right? How many guys are we getting back fit? There's some guys that are peaking. Like that's what I mean. Like if we get in, it's just going to be like
on defense. It would be quite fun to watch if we can have a chance for the playoffs. I reckon.
So the next question I wanted to know: Big Ben, over or under 200 yards, 250 yards passing.
Ooh, 250 under.
3. Yeah, sorry. Right. 3 TDs, over or under.
Oh, under. I just don't think we're not playing that style of football.
Interceptions, 2, over or under.
No, under, because if we throw 2, we're done.
Yeah.
If we throw 2, we're gone.
I agree, but I think he can throw just over 250 with short passing to Najee. I actually think he could throw 3. I say push. All right, TJ Watt. How many sacks does he get? How many sacks does he finish the season with?
I think it's a solid. Actually, how many? I think he gets 3. How many's on now?
21.5.
He'll finish 24.5. He'll get 3.
3. Okay. I think he finishes with 2.5, but a forced fumble strip sack.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna get 2 early, and he'll get like 1 late, something like that.
Yeah.
You know.
All right. Well, we'll see. Well, with Mark, with that, anything else you wanted to mention before we close out the show?
Is that it? So say thanks everyone for coming behind this little curtain and listening to me almost, croak it. It's been a struggle actually, trying to time my takes and my sickness in between, but I've had a good time. Basically, hey, look, she'll be right. We've got a chance in the dance, mate. The Steelers can beat the Ravens. I know they can. It's just do they want to? Did we use too much energy last week against the Browns?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Like that was a great game. Now, if we can muster up and have a chance to win, I can see the Jaguars and the Colts going even, like 10-7, 14, something like that, But even if they do lose, if we win and the Colts win, what do? You just got to hope, mate. Like, you just got to hope for it, I reckon. Just see what happens. What else can we do? I would love it. I would love to talk playoff football next week. It'd be great. The whole season changes. Are we talking playoff football?
If we make the playoffs, and I have to bring up this show and share the screen, and we can replay your reaction.
It'd be the best. I'm sorry, it'd just be the best.
That's all right. Look, I think Steelers fans out there, crush every toe and finger and hope to death. We'd love to see it. It'd be historic. I think it'd be poetic when you think about, Jerome Bettis and the way he finished up. But regardless, I have a bit of faith in this team because I'm actually really excited by what we've got ahead of us over the next couple of years and enjoy the process too. Like we talked about Big Ben for 18 years, right? Mm-hmm. Enjoy a little bit of, if they do get a rookie quarterback or they don't this year, they certainly will the following year, right? Enjoy some of that. This defense can still win. Even if everyone's sitting there going, oh my God, about Mason, right? Well, you know what? Mason's better than Duck Hodges, and the two of them together got the Steelers to a 500 winning record now.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? In 2019, when he wasn't nearly as experienced. Now it's a different thing. We've got a great defense. We didn't have, they ended up having to get Minka at the time. Minka's in our system as well. They didn't, Devin Bush was still coming along. It was his rookie year, I think. Yeah. And so, just let it develop, let it develop, have some faith, have some trust. And here we go, Steelers.
2 games, Matty, 2 games. Steelers beat Ravens. Jags beat Colts. We're in, baby. That's it.
So with Mark, as always,
Go Steelers.
That's it.